Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, August 5th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gan. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea reports more than 1,700 new COVID-19 cases Thursday, surpassing the 700 mark in nearly a week. Authorities plan to revise the current social distancing level Friday. The World Health Organization is pressing wealthier countries not to order COVID-19 booster shots for their citizens, while other nations are still awaiting first jabs. It says such plans should be halted at least until 10% of the population in every country is vaccinated. And South Korea's finance minister claims the nation is seeing a slowdown of economic recovery as quarantine efforts to contain the fourth wave of COVID-19 continue. He vowed to decide on how the government will provide financial support, especially by re-extending debt maturity for banks for September. South Korea on Thursday reported 1,776 new COVID-19 infections. Case numbers receded earlier this week, with some 1,200 daily infections reported on Monday and Tuesday. But after jumping to 1,725 by Wednesday morning, Thursday's increase maintains that trend. The level 4 distancing measures were originally due to end this Sunday, but rising case numbers mean health authorities are leaning into an extension. They will announce their decision on Friday. The majority of the Cheonghae Unit who tested positive for the coronavirus during their mission off the coast of Africa are presumed to have contracted the Delta variant. Health authorities randomly took 64 samples from the infected service members to test which variant strain they had contracted, and all tested positive for the variant. Given the close proximity of crew members on the vessel, authorities say it's highly likely that all of the 272 infected members caught the same strain. So far, 5 are still receiving treatment. Booking for COVID-19 vaccines has started in South Korea for people aged 18 to 49 who are living outside the Greater Seoul area. More broad reservations for people in this age group start next week. Kim Yeon-sung reports.
Those aged between 18 and 49 who are in priority groups and are living outside the Greater Seoul area can book their COVID-19 vaccine from 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Local governments have given priority to roughly 2 million people. These include essential workers like delivery staff and street cleaners, the underprivileged like the handicapped and migrant workers, and those who work in high-risk facilities like singing rooms and PC rooms. The capital area allowed bookings for those groups on Tuesday evening, and from Thursday, people from all regions will be able to book their first shot. The government has staggered bookings according to region to prevent people from overwhelming the vaccine reservation system. And from next Monday, vaccine bookings will start for the remaining 17 million people between the ages 18 and 49. The day that they can use the booking system is based on their birthdays. For example, those whose birthday ends with 9 can reserve the vaccines on August 9th. This comes as South Korea on Tuesday inoculated close to 219,000 people. 39.3% of the population have now received at least one dose of the vaccine. Health authorities on Wednesday showed confidence in vaccine supplies and the reservation system.
Today, 1,188,000 doses of AstraZeneca and 2,530,000 doses of Pfizer will come into the country. Our vaccine reservation system is also continuously improving.
Health authorities also said that they're close to striking a deal for 50 million more doses of COVID vaccines, mostly mRNA, for next year. Kim Yeon-sung, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in will hold a strategy and vision meeting in the coming hours to discuss plans to make South Korea a global vaccine production and supply base. South Korea has the world's second largest biopharmaceutical production capability. It also aims to secure vaccine sovereignty through the development of domestic vaccines. A soon-to-be-launched committee to promote the nation's status will consist of 12 members, including representatives of domestic firms. The health minister will also brief the president on strategies to promote the vision globally. The World Health Organization is pressing wealthier countries against ordering COVID-19 booster shots for their citizens, while others, often poorer nations, are still awaiting first jabs. The head of the agency says such plans should be halted at least until 10% of population in every country is vaccinated. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Citing global vaccine inequity, the head of the World Health Organization on Wednesday called on wealthy nations to halt the distribution of COVID-19 booster shots.
We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated.
He acknowledged concerns stemming from the highly transmissible Delta variant, but reiterated that countries that have already used most of the global supply should not be using even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable remain unprotected. According to health experts, the need for a more equitable distribution of vaccines comes as more strains will emerge unless more of the world's population is immunized. They cite the Delta variant, which was first detected in India after the original strain was allowed to spread, replicate, and ultimately mutate due to the lack of vaccine availability. Countries like Israel and Germany have already provided booster shots, while others like Haiti only recently secured their first batches. The WHO says the duration of the moratorium request could be extended if vaccine rates in countries with low rates do not increase. Meanwhile, the European Commission on Wednesday announced that it has approved a supply contract with U.S. firm Novavax to buy up to 200 million doses of its vaccine. The move comes as the EU is trying to diversify its vaccine portfolio, which has been heavily reliant on Pfizer and Moderna so far. EU states will be able to buy up to 100 million doses, with an option for an additional 100 million through 2023, once it has been approved by EU regulators. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
New COVID-19 cases in Japan have reached unprecedented levels. On Wednesday, an all-time daily high. The government's policy to limit hospitalizations is also fueling debate in the country. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
Japan has warned COVID-19 infections are surging at an unprecedented rate, with the country reporting a record daily tally of over 14,000 as of Wednesday evening. Tokyo, where the Olympics are underway, also reported on Wednesday an all-time high of over 4,100 new cases, nearly 1,000 more than the previous week.
Since it is the highest ever number of COVID-19 cases in Tokyo, we have been responding with a sense of caution for the past few days. In any case, it means that we must take proper measures to protect the lives and health of the people with the highest priority.
Japan's Health Minister Norihisa Tamura attributed the surge to the Delta variant, while defending the government's new policy of asking patients with milder symptoms to isolate at home instead of going to the hospital. Addressing the Diet on Wednesday, he said the measure is part of the government's preemptive response as the pandemic has entered a new phase. The policy has been met with criticism, with even the ruling Liberal Democratic Party pressing for its withdrawal. Responding to the crisis, Japan is seeking to place 8 prefectures, including Fukushima, Aichi, and Kumamoto, under a quasi-state of emergency from Sunday until the end of the month. The Japanese government, which has been criticized for hosting the Olympics despite local fears over COVID-19, says there's no evidence to link the new surge to the Games. However, the Japanese government's top medical advisor warns the situation could worsen after the Games end, with Tokyo's daily tally possibly surpassing 10,000. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
We now turn to the Tokyo Olympics. With just a few days remaining until the famous torch is extinguished, the Tokyo Olympics is steadily edging towards its finale. For more on this, we have our Kim Do-yeon at the News Center. Do-yeon, athletes must be pushing to the finish line.
Mo-yeon, there are plenty of high-stake events to play at, but as you said, the Olympics is nearing its end. Team sports that generally stretch to the end of Olympics before the medals are handed out are now down to a surviving few, and that goes for Team Korea too. Today, the baseball team will play its second semifinal match against the United States. Due to the complex system among the 6 teams participating in Olympics baseball, despite losing to Japan on Wednesday night, the Taeguk Warriors will get another swing for a ticket to the final on Saturday to defend their Olympics title. The U.S. already beat South Korea once in the group stage 4-2, so it'll be a tough game for the Koreans. The loser of this round will play the Dominican Republic in the bronze medal decider. Now turning to a review of what happened on Wednesday, Korean athletes emerged triumphant in some sports, but things haven't gone as hoped in others. Despite no medals, there were signs that some may come in the coming days. Han Sung-woo has the details on the ups and downs from the Japanese capital.
The South Korean women's volleyball team made it to the Final Four at the Tokyo Olympics. Led by superstar Kim Young-kyung, who scored 28 points, including a huge match point spike in the 5th set, Team Korea bested Turkey 3-2 to advance to the semis, for the first time since the 2012 London Games. A semi-final victory on Friday would mean at least a silver medal and Korea's first Olympic medal in the sport since 1976 in Montreal, where the country won bronze. Meanwhile, sport climber Seo Chae-hyun finished second overall in the women's combined preliminaries, advancing to the final to compete for a podium spot on Friday. Women's golf opened on Wednesday with 4 of Korea's very own competing. Reigning Olympic champion Park In-bi finished the first round at 2 under par to put her in 7th place, tied with Kim Se-young and several others. World number 2 ranked Ko Jin-young performed a little better for a 4th place tie at 3 under par. On top of the board at the end of the day was Sweden's Madeleine Sackstrom at 5 under par. And despite a valiant effort, the men's table tennis team got swept by China's trio 3-0 in the semifinals and will be competing for a bronze medal on Friday. The women's handball team, meanwhile, suffered defeat at the hands of Sweden in the quarterfinals. A competitive second half was not enough to overcome the point deficit sustained in the first. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Peruth Chemutai has become the first Ugandan woman to win an Olympic gold medal, winning Wednesday's 3,000-meter steeplechase final. The 22-year-old finished on 9 minutes 1.45 seconds, more than 3 seconds ahead of the American silver medalist who had been leading until the last lap. This is only the 3rd overall Olympic gold for Uganda, the first coming in the men's 400-meter hurdles in 1972, followed by the men's marathon in 2012. With some of the youngest competitors at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, all 3 medalists for women's skateboarding on Wednesday were teenagers. Gold was taken by Japanese 19-year-old Sakura Yosuzuni, while her compatriot 12-year-old Kokona Hiraki took the silver. Hiraki fell just short of topping the podium and could have been the youngest ever gold medalist in Olympics history. Britain's Sky Brown took the bronze, becoming the youngest ever British Olympic medalist. Skateboarding was newly added to the Olympics this year, and the host nation has swooped 5 medals already. For some, a silver medal is an accomplishment, but for others, it's a disappointment, considering the hard work put in striving for gold. British light heavyweight boxer Benjamin Whittaker grabbed media attention on Wednesday after he refused to wear his silver medal following a split decision loss to Cuba's Arlen Lopez in the final. In a follow-up interview, he said he felt like a failure and that he didn't perform as well as he had prepared for coming into the Olympics. However, he also showed regret, saying that the event wasn't about him but about representing his country, so he should have been proud. Finally, let's take a look at where countries stand in terms of the medal rankings, as well as some exciting events to watch out for throughout the day. I'll be back with more in a later newscast.
South Korea's Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi stressed the need to minimize the pandemic-driven downturn and quickly support those hit hard by the pandemic to foster economic recovery. During an emergency economic meeting Thursday, Hong said that the country's economic recovery appears to have ground to a halt amid the fourth wave of the pandemic. In response, he vowed to swiftly use the second supplementary budget as well as ramp up antivirus measures during August and September. The minister also noted that the government is looking into additional support measures for small businesses, such as a deferral of tax payments and social insurance premiums in the second half of the year. A tug of war between labor and business over South Korea's minimum wage for 2022 has ended. The Minimum Wage Commission has settled on 9,160 Korean won, or roughly $8 an hour, from New Year's Day. Labor officials were pushing for a 14.7% increase to $8.74, while business representatives wanted 1.5%. The commission found middle ground, and the government accepted the compromise. The new rate is 5.1% higher than this year's rate. More huge IPOs are just around the corner, one this Friday and another next week. But they are unlikely to see the dramatic price rises this time. Some say the projected corporate valuation seems much higher than its actual worth. Ji-young provides a deeper analysis.
A blockbuster IPO is coming up this Friday, August 6th, for South Korea's largest internet-only bank, KakaoBank, run by South Korea's dominant chat application operator, Kakao. Some 1.9 million people bid for shares during the two-day subscription period and poured in some $50 billion into retail orders. Although competition was high, the response it got from retail investors was not as hot as previous IPOs. The amount of subscription deposits made was the fifth largest for a local IPO, but was far less than those of other big-name companies that went public earlier this year, including SK Technology and SK Bioscience. And due to the recent surge in COVID-19, brokerage houses were relatively empty. Due to the recent surge in COVID-19 infections in the country, some brokerage firms are limiting the number of customers who can enter the lounge at once, and many retail investors are applying online. Also, there was some controversy as some said the projected corporate valuation seemed much higher than its true worth. That's because a relatively small venture in terms of asset size and earnings would become one of the largest financial institutions in the country right after listing. Experts say as the price is overvalued, KakaoBank is unlikely to see the dramatic price rises that previous IPOs saw in their first days on the Kospi. There was also controversy surrounding the IPO price for one of South Korea's biggest game makers, Krafton. The two-day public subscription for the game developer behind global blockbuster PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds ended on Tuesday, but the sales of shares were disappointing. Orders came to nearly 8 times the amount of shares made available, significantly lower than KakaoBank, which had 183 orders per share, or Kakao Games with 1,525 orders per share.
The biggest reason for the overvaluation is that 90% of its sales are coming from only one game, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I encourage people to sell the shares as soon as the market starts on the first day of going public because the price is overvalued.
But he added that investors should look forward to some other big IPOs that are also coming up in the near future, including Kakao Pay, Kakao Mobility, and LG Energy Solution. Ji-young, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. official has spoken with Myanmar's exiled shadow government, also known as the National Unity Government, to discuss ways to restore democracy in Myanmar. The talks on Wednesday, Washington time, were the first since the military junta ousted the democratically elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. The conversation was led by the number 2 U.S. diplomat, Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, and a group of Myanmar representatives, including Acting Foreign Minister Zin-Mar Aung. According to State Department spokesman Ned Price, the U.S. made it clear that they stood with the pro-democracy movement and urged the group's foreign ministers to push for the release of all those unjustly detained. They also addressed rising COVID-19 infections in Myanmar and the need for humanitarian assistance. The British Navy said Wednesday that the hijackers who boarded a vessel off the coast of the UAE in the Gulf of Oman have left the ship. The news comes after the UK Maritime Trade Operations warned of a potential hijack the night before, saying the incident is complete. While it did not provide further details on the incident, Reuters earlier quoted two security maritime sources who said Iranian-backed forces were believed to have seized the tanker. The Panama-flagged vessel had been heading towards Iran under the control of armed hijackers before they left. The incident also comes at least 6 ships in the region on Tuesday broadcasted warnings that they had lost control of their steering under unclear circumstances. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reaffirmed Washington's commitment to deepen cooperation with Southeast Asia for peace and prosperity in the region. Addressing the U.S.-ASEAN foreign ministers meeting Wednesday, Blinken also underscored ASEAN's central role in the process. Vowing to lead global efforts to overcome the pandemic, he also said the U.S. will donate more than 23 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to ASEAN member states and nearly $160 million to their COVID-19 response fund.
Good morning. Expect similar weather to Wednesday along with heat wave warnings across much of Korea with a chance for heavy passing rain. 5 to 60 millimeters is in the forecast across much of Korea. It could pour down when it starts dropping, forecast for up to 30 millimeters an hour. But when there's no rain, we'll have sunny skies, so muggy conditions throughout the day today. In Seoul and Gwangju will be going up to 34 degrees. Daegu and Gyeongju will make it to 35. Saturday, which is Ipchu, the beginning of autumn in Korea's seasonal calendar, looks to bring some much-needed relief from the heat. Meanwhile, tropical storm Lupit, the ninth typhoon of the season, formed southeast of Hong Kong on Tuesday night and is forecast to bring torrential rain to southeast China and possibly approach Japan's Okinawa prefectures in the coming days. Then another storm, Mirine, is forecast to bring heavy rain and strong gusts to Tokyo over the weekend. So we'll keep you updated. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.